We don't always have to think about the theory side of music when it comes to improvisation. When we're learning, yes, that's a good time to do it. We're trying to develop an understanding of ways to approach and name the things that we're doing. But when it comes to just improv in general, there's other things that we can pull from that helps us to communicate our music and our ideas. But before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, also the notification bell, and make sure to leave a comment and or a question below. That way I can cover it in a future episode. So when we're talking about improvisation, again, we put a lot of time into acquiring the knowledge that we need to expand our ideas, our understanding of our instruments. That way we can be better equipped to handle the situations at hand. Because again, the idea is that when you're improvising is that you're trying to openly communicate. But there's another side to it as well. When we go to improvise, there is the emotional context that we could start to bring into play. You could have a composition, a song in which when you're playing, it elicits a certain memory or maybe a certain emotion that's attached to the memory that you could have. And when you use that as a basis, you may start to notice that when you're improvising, it's not so mechanical. There's a lot of things that we can do in order to get out of our own heads. We could vocalize what we're playing, right? That's something that a lot of musicians do. We could quietly sing it to ourselves or hum in unison or maybe out of tune with our instruments if you play one that doesn't require you to actually use your mouth to play. But let's discuss the emotion of music, what it creates. Because for me, I know that a lot of the music that I've listened to for years comes back to the attachment that I have to it based on experiences, sights, could be other sounds, even smells. All these things mixed in with the music that I was listening to throughout my youth up until now, all of those things that I just mentioned, when you combine that with the music, it has a very powerful impression on how maybe even we handle the day-to-day. And a lot of times if there's certain, in situations, certain mindsets that I'm in, or a certain emotion comes up, those songs will start to come back into my memory. So when it comes to the emotion side of it and how that plays into the music, and maybe even a composition, there's one song that I can for sure say that there is an emotional aspect to it. Something that relates to outside of music theory. And it's a composition that harmonically is very simple, but it's a song of mine called Spheres. And the song is one that I created just by playing around and improvising a little bit and just finding some ideas. Now, the chord structure to it, again, is very simple. It's not a hard song to play over. The melody is not overly complex. But what it means to me, as far as the memories that it elicits and the things that are attached, all these different components is much greater. So the way that it came about, and I started to think about the song was that I related it to my grandmother. And when I started playing guitar, I was 14 when I started playing. Now, it wasn't too long after that my grandmother had passed away. So she never did see me performing with my guitar. She never heard me play the guitar really, because when I did bring it around, it was unplugged electric, and I was kind of learning a little thing here and there and trying to figure it out. So she never really did hear me play the guitar. Now she heard me play the trumpet, but not the guitar. So the guitar, the process of going through that and learning it, and her not being there to experience it, and I know that she was such a big proponent of the things that I was doing, and she really, which you could say about a lot of grandmas, but their support of what you're doing, even if it sucks sometimes, right? The support, means a lot. And she never did, hear me play and develop on the instrument. So when I wrote the song Spheres, a lot of the things that I was thinking at that moment was the memories of her and the fact that she wasn't there. But in writing the song, I looked at it as a way, in some respects, to send the music out for her to maybe hear. And the title Spheres, what it comes back to is those memories that I had of us sitting out on her porch and being at night and looking up at the stars. Now, in the area I grew up, now she was in an area that was a little bit more developed than where I grew up. Where I grew up, when it's dark, it's dark. Like, it's just woods. But where she lived was a little bit more light, but still, it was easier to see the stars as opposed to like in a city area for sure. So we would sit out on the porch, and I remember looking up at the stars with her, and we would just sit and talk for long periods of time, which is something that unfortunately I think a lot of people miss out on now with all the phones and whatnot, but that's a whole other discussion. But those memories that I had of sitting and having in-depth conversations, even as a little kid, and all the questions that I would ask, and the stories that we would make up and tell each other, those memories were with me very much through that process. So when I would play the song Spheres in the beginning, still now too, there's other things I can relate it to as I go along because there's more memories that start to become attached with playing the song. But when I was playing that song, and even in the process of composing it, there were times where I would tear up for sure. And the energy that comes out in that tune, it's developed over time. But the energy that would build signified the emotions that build up on the inside. And on the one hand, the sadness. On the other hand, the energy of the music being out there and the happiness that she would have in knowing that I'm making the music. So to get a little bit more detailed than that, though, when I improvise over the tune, a lot of times it's very subtle in the beginning. I use a lot of clean sound, being jazz, jazz guitars, playing this style doesn't mean that it's clean all the time, right? If you listen to the things I put out, you'll know that I do use overdrive, so it does come out. But what I do is I usually play simple ideas. And what I'm doing is attaching the idea of, let's just set it up. It's like we're presenting like a story. It starts for me like at a younger age, and it's a story. And I'm putting little things out there, little ideas. And as I'm improvising, it picks up, gets a little bit more dense in the phrases, more elongated lines. And then usually I build it up to a certain point and I stop for the other soloists to play. And then usually I open it up after the other soloists play, usually drummer I'll say for last. And as the drummer's coming out of the solo, that's when I kick in like an overdrive. And the purpose of that, again, is building up. It's building that story. And here it is, the big climax of the tune. Then it usually dies back down. And that signifies like going on the journey and coming back, understanding that the music is put out there, and then knowing that I put it there, it's left there, and I've created this dialogue, hopefully, with all the other musicians in the audience, and then we let it settle before it builds again. It's almost like if you were able to see someone again, even if they're, whether if there's someone that's in your life now or someone that's passed away, it's like if you saw them and you were saying goodbye, it starts to diminish down. It's like a sun setting. I can relate it to that too. The sun is setting. And then you bring it back. One last hurrah of sorts before it diminishes again. So in a song like that, again, the improvisation is very much built on building the story, building the emotions that are there, the good and also the bad, the understanding that the person is gone, that I've lost that person that meant a great deal to me. But then bringing back the memories, letting them, capturing them, understanding the situation, and then allowing it to settle before bringing it back again and saying, you know what, one last hug, one last memory, one last goodbye. Here we go. So hopefully you found this video useful. You apply some of this. Think about some of these things. You could relate it to, a lot of times when I was playing, I would think about storms, and that could elicit these ideas for compositions, that feeling that you get before like a severe thunderstorm's coming. You hear the thunder in the distance, the energy, the excitement, or for some it could be fear, and taking that and using that as a basis for composition or soloing. When you think about something that is building a lot of excitement, it could be a lot of notes. If something is more subtle, less notes. Build a lot of rhythmic density, bring it back, complexity and harmony. These things can represent these emotions that you have in your playing. So think about that when you're playing. What I would say is just take like a drone note, take a chord, something very simple, and think about things as you're playing. Don't keep getting caught all up in the theory part. That's great. I like talking about theory. I like discussing it. But when it comes to the playing, you got to go beyond that. So hopefully you found this video useful, that you can apply some of these things into your playing. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment and or question below. Also, don't forget to check the description below, because that's where you're going to find the link to my lessons and courses on musiclessons.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.